Texas!
He's a 10.
I choose this family.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 134 of 91 Lone Star Roundup. I'm one of your hosts, Katie, and with me are my lovely co-hosts, Grace and EJ.
Hello. Hello.
Today, we will be talking about the series finale for 91 Lone Star. I hate that I'm saying this right now, guys, but
Right?
we are here,
Yeah.
which is season 5, episode 12, titled Homecoming. As always, we have so much to talk about, especially today. So let's get to it. It's kind of weird because it's definitely been a progression this whole season, knowing that this is the last. And then, like, every episode of everything I've, like, posted and done with Lone Star is just, like, every week. And then this week, I'm just, like, it's, like, I don't know, it's weird, like, watching the episode and then, like, after I did, like, a after live, which somebody was like, oh, thank God somebody's live, talk about this. And then it's, like, I'm like, I know it's the last in my brain, but like part of me is just like, oh, no, it's not. I'm still not there yet. I don't know when I'll get there, but
Yeah.
it's a weird thing. But we started this episode at like the nuclear reactive like science building at the university or whatever it is. And it was a weird scene because the one guy is like the doctor is like telling all these teenage kids about their like nuclear reactor and like this program, and he's like they're completely not phased. And when I was watching this, I'm like, I could totally understand why these kids are definitely not interested, because I'm honestly bored of the scene and it just started. Then
honestly, I'm the exact opposite. I was
Really?
I was there listening like,
I know, me too.
oh, give him his flowers, let him talk. I'm interested.
It was
But,
so
yeah.
boring. I was just like, dude, this is not it. But it was just like, it was just not. And then like one of the kids raises his hand and asks what the Wi-Fi password is, and I'm like, yep, that sounds about right. I get it. Like that was just like not the most entertaining thing. Like you could talk about anything else. It was just the start of it was just so like not I'm not here for it. And then like so then he was talking about walking across campus for flan, and all I could think of is Bobby in season 1 being like, good flan is the bomb.
And you know what? I was telling you guys before, I was like, I would also walk across campus for flan. Like I do love me a good flan. Now I want flan. I'm gonna have to get out of work.
And then of course the emergency alert for the asteroid comes in, and then I'm assuming she was a student or whatever, Caitlin, like he calls her and is like talking, and before he can like tell her, he's like, oh, call Dr. Spar and tell her to hit the scram button immediately. And then she's like, oh, she had a heart attack when the alert came through. And it's just like, well, that's not good. And
right,
she's like, oh, should we evacuate? And he's like, no, don't evacuate. And he's like, you need to hit the scram button to shut down the reactor, not like and stuff, in case like the meteor hits it. And he tells her it's tricky, but I'll walk you through it, and like I'll tell you where it is. And but he's like breaking up on the call when he's calling her, and
Yeah,
like, when
reception's
they're
going to
talking,
shit.
yeah, like, and so the call drops, and it's just like, oh shit. So he's like running back to like, yeah, just in time, because this is like 30 minutes before or at that point. And then when he gets there almost in time, and stuff. But when he gets into the building, he like slips and he falls and he hits his head, and then there's a pool of blood. And I'm just like, of course that's how this is gonna happen. And like,
honestly, the way he had like with the way they framed him running and like the events up to then, I kind of thought he was the one that was gonna have a heart attack. Because of how they were kind of framing things up until that point. I was like, dude, if this guy has a heart attack and dies before he can get there, and then he just fell like this, I was like, oh, never mind. if something like this happens instead.
Right. And then like he does get like found by somebody like right away, which I was like, okay, that's good. And he's trying to like talk and say like, oh, like the scram button, but like he's saying scram and it doesn't make any sense. It's like all mumbled and this dude is just like, what? And then like the asteroid hits and that's that for now. And then 7 minutes before before the strike, we're at the call center and um the boss at like the call center is like telling everyone that the governor has declared this a state of emergency with a citywide curfew. He's also deployed rangers to help protect critical infrastructure around town. And so Carlos is here and Wyatt had just gotten off the phone with the Texas Emergency Management and fills everyone in on what to expect. Basically, they're projecting that the asteroid will definitely hit the atmosphere in the next 6 minutes. But what it does after that is anybody's guess. It could splinter into a million different pieces and then another dispatcher literally interrupts him is like saying it could be a statewide extinction event and I'm just like
Right.
okay, let's not go there, but okay. I understand. And then Wyatt says that either way, last time one entered atmosphere, it created a significant shockwave. And Bree's like, oh, how significant? And Wyatt just says how it blew out the windows across 6 cities in Russia. And it's just like, yep, this is
that's pretty
serious
significant.
business. And they are also alerted not to send anybody to the hospital unless an absolute medical emergency, which is like, duh.
Right.
And then we get Carlos gets a call, he picks it up, it's TK. So we get like the backhand part of this call through like part of Carlos's view too. Because we only really heard his voice in the end of last episode.
Yeah.
And it's like him being like, oh hi baby. Just like, and then TK is like, hey baby, where are you? And Carlos says how he was assigned to the call center on emergency detail. And TK tells Carlos, listen, I don't know what's gonna happen and with when this thing hits, but I just wanted to, and Carlos is like, hey, no goodbyes, okay?
Right.
And TK tells him that he is not calling to say goodbye. He is calling about Jonah. And Carlos is like, oh, yeah. And TK says how, yeah, I was talking to Judd earlier and he was saying how they could use all the energy from the disappointment of the adoption agency rejecting them to, using that fuel to keep fighting for Jonah. And Carlos is like I'm glad, but he doubts working a shift through an asteroid strike is going to convince them we don't have high risk jobs.
Mm.
TK says
That's
how
true.
yeah, TK says how he actually has the perfect response for that. And Carlos is like, oh yeah, let's hear it. And TK tells him that he will tell him the next time he sees him. And Carlos, yeah, I know. And Carlos tells TK he loves him, and TK's like, I love you too, and that was so sweet. And then all of a sudden you hear like this alarm sound, and TK's like, oh, I gotta go. And Carlos just goes, hey, no goodbyes. And TK's like, yep, no goodbyes. And so then we see them get under the trucks and TK hugging Owen. That was very sweet. This other part of this because was just like I was sitting here watching this part like so like at the call center the boss is just like, oh, everyone get under the desk. Then here's Wyatt who is paralyzed in a wheelchair.
Right.
And they're like, get under your desk. And you just see him like sort of panic, but be like kind of like, what am I supposed to do? So then Carlos runs over. He kind of puts like a jacket or something over him.
Yeah. Takes
And
his coat jacket off. And
yeah, and tells him to basically just put his head down and Carlos shields him, which I'm like, thank God for this man because like
Right.
literally
I
nobody
mean-
else thought about this. I know it's kind of like
No one thought about it.
it's not like a usual situation. Like it's kind of just like nobody really thought about this, but it's just like I saw Wyatt and I was just like I love how he literally said get down and here's Wyatt.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not necessarily surprised no one thought about it. They're all just kind of thinking about protecting themselves at the time.
Right.
But I hadn't even thought about, and I think this actually kind of brought up a good point about um like difficulties that disabled people face in emergencies like this. Like it brought a
Right.
highlight to them. Like he couldn't get down. He was going to be in direct hit for any like glass or anything that flew. And I'm glad that Carlos saw and did something about it. It warmed my heart to see that.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh yeah, I don't necessarily know that I would have thought of that either in that case
Mm-hmm.
because my brain just would not have been thinking about it.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I think it definitely, yeah, it highlighted good things, I think. But
Yeah, it
it was a
did.
little, it was a little terrifying for a second.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, like yeah, it does make you think about things. With that, I know like I can't even remember what show it is, but like somebody was in a wheelchair and then there was a fire and then somebody had to carry them down like a bunch of stairs. Can't remember what it was. I don't know. It was something.
I mean, I feel like there have been a couple of times on that with 911. I know
Yeah.
that we've had stuff like this highlighted before, like when there was the deaf woman in the apartment fire couldn't get to, like, she didn't hear any of the evacuation stuff. She couldn't like really call
Oh, yeah.
911 on her own because she couldn't
Right.
hear.
Right.
Yeah, and it
Um,
happened in Lone Star when like in a similar way too, but it's just there are those scenarios that we don't think about.
Yeah.
And then we're seeing like the aftermath of all this because
Mm.
the glass is like shattering and like all the windows in the 126 and it's just like this poor firehouse. And like the paper is just
sorry.
flying everywhere. I found that a little funny though because I'm just like, yep, this is just what's happening. And then like people at this like university just like flying everywhere and then like all the furniture and I'm just like all these people are literally outside. I mean, that is probably the worst place you could be in something like this, but you know what? That's like literally real life. Because if
Yeah.
I
anyone freaks
mean,
out,
I don't think it's better inside because if something does happen, then you've got a collapsing building on top of you. That's why, like, with earthquakes and stuff, it's also can be dangerous to be inside. Like, you don't necessarily want to be.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I
yeah,
don't think there's necessarily asteroid protocol necessarily.
yeah,
No, probably not.
But I still think like I don't think they would have been safe wherever they were is just kind of my main addition to that. Like, yeah, they
yeah,
didn't fare well outside, but I don't think they wouldn't fare well inside either.
yeah. I mean, outside you don't even know what's gonna fly. You don't know how
True.
powerful it could be, so it's just like maybe not the smartest decision, but I understand that wherever you are, it's going to be pretty bad. I could say the same about the people that are all traveling when they knew this was happening, and I'm just like, guys,
Oh
really?
yeah, that's the time where you listen to the shelter in place order.
Yeah, literally.
Right?
And but yeah, we have that happening, and then like the electricity is buzzing and things are like flying around in the call center. And then everyone at the call center is like okay, and then the generators kick back on, like takes a minute, but they kick back on. The boss is like, oh, maybe it's a good sign our boards aren't lighting up and with calls, and why it's like or a bad
That's
one.
always about
And the boss is like, what do you
Right?
mean? And Wyatt says how he thinks that their hard lines are down, and the boss was like how the system like switches over to 5G as a backup, but it's not. And like Wyatt checks it out, and apparently like the cell towers in like that area are like down, which
Mm.
is not good. So they find out they find out the basically all the cell towers are down and all the ones they use are all down, and basically they're in the middle of it, so like everyone on the side of town is like basically on the dark, so that's not good. And um like we also see this girl at like the university try to call 911. She's calling several times. She's not getting through. She's like, "Wait, why is the call not getting through? Like why is nothing going through? Like nobody has service. Like they all even check their phones too." Like Carlos is like, "Yeah, I have no service."
Right.
So there's
Yeah.
that. And then we see 5 seconds before impact. We're at Tommy's house, and she wakes up, and like the wind is gusting and rattling. And I was like, freaking knew she wasn't dead. I was like, I told you guys. Like, I was really watching this, and I was like, I told everyone she wasn't dead. I was just like, I knew it, cause like,
Yeah, you did. Yeah, because I know I was pretty sure she was dead, but
I was like, I
I
don't know.
was definitely sure.
I know. I was like literally, it was funny because last week online people were like I remember getting comments on my videos, people being like, the fandom says she's dead. And I'm like, guys, I'm like 50-50 on it, but I'm going towards the side that she is not dead because I don't know, something about this is just not reading. And I'm like, also I've seen this and I've seen that, and yes, they can cut scenes, but when something is out there, it's likely not that. They're either gonna twist it or something else is gonna happen, but I don't know. This is just not giving it. And I was just like, I knew it. So when I saw
I
that, I
still
was just
stand by
like,
I still stand by all my reasons I thought that she died in the last episode. Like I still stand by that because the framing led to it.
right.
I'm of course I'm glad she's not dead or anything, but I'm
they
like,
framed a
oh, okay.
few
I truly did not
things.
think so.
Yeah, they framed a
They
few
definitely did.
things to make us believe something else. So that was clearly a theme they were going for, is to like trick us into things. Because there were so many things in this episode where I was just like, wait. Um, Cause yeah. And then so then she sees Charles and she's like asking if she crossed over, and he's like, not quite. And so she's asked like what's going on. He's like, oh, you don't need to worry about that. And Tommy checks her phone to see the emergency alerts for the asteroid, and she's like, oh, she gets up and she's like, oh, I have to go help. And Charles is just like, you can barely stand. Like, you're not gonna be able to help. And Tommy's like, I can stand and I'm gonna go help, basically. And he's just like, why would you put yourself through that? And Tommy says like how that's what she was put on the earth to do. Even if she doesn't have much time left, that's what she's gonna do. And Charles is just like, it, if she goes out there, it won't end well for her, and he wants her to stay. And Tommy says how he knew that she was a fighter when he married her, and he's like, oh, see you soon. And I don't know. That's still like, she is definitely like imagining all that, but that still confuses me.
Yeah.
I
Mm,
am so like,
yeah.
usually in shows when they do stuff like that, it's very clear, but I was still like, I have no idea what's going on. But
Yeah, for sure.
anyways, we go back to the 126. Everyone ends up being okay, and they're like expecting the tones to go off. Like Marjan's even counting her down, like, brace
Hey,
yourselves for crazy in 3, 2, 1, but nothing happens, nothing goes off. And so like Judd's like, oh, I'll go get a broom because there's glass everywhere. But then this guy like comes running in the firehouse in a motorcycle helmet. He literally has one flip flop on one foot, one on not on the other. He's stepping on glass. He has really bad like road rash, and like just like he fell off his bike, like, or whatever. And I'm just like, oh, well. And even Paul's like, when they say shelter in place, maybe you should shelter in place. And the dude says how, like, oh, like, I don't know what he was doing. He was like writing when it happened. And then he was like, it doesn't even matter because they didn't even pick up, like, screw them. And they're like, no one's like, who didn't pick up? And he's like, 911. And
I got
we're
their
like,
voicemail.
God, he's like, I didn't even know they had a voicemail, and I thought it was a little funny.
It was
It
kind of
also
funny.
reminds me of like, I don't know, it reminds me of some things in 911 too. Like, I just remember like when their lines went down
Yeah.
in a couple instances, and also in real life that happened. I can't remember exactly what it was, but like, it was like 911 was down for a few minutes, and it was just like, yeah. So then Owen radios dispatch asking if they copy, and then they radio back saying like, yeah, we do. And Owen asks if everything is good with their communications because they just had a walk-in that told them that he tried to call 911 but nobody answered. And Owen is told their hard lines are down and the towers around the call center all up. they radio to Verizon's tactical humanitarian operations response vehicle, and Owen goes, "Oh, Thor." And I was just like, well, this is an interesting ad placement.
I was gonna be like, they
Right.
definitely sponsored this
I was like,
episode.
yeah, there was definitely, I was like, oh, I mean, I know that right now they're saying that Verizon is the best network for first responders and they give like huge deals for first responders and military. But I was just like, wow, that's a okay.
I'm like, that's
They
oddly
were like, "Hey, this is
specific.
our final episode. We'll give them good." But like everyone was saying that online, and I was like, was watching it, and like, I was like, "Well, that's an interesting ad placement."
Yeah.
Like, just the
Mhm.
fact. I was honestly laughing at that because I'm just like, they really did that, and I love Mateo being like, "Wow, that's the best name ever." Like, yeah, that ad, I was
Because
just
what they
like,
call it, Thor.
Thor.
yeah,
Yeah.
Thor.
I'm like, okay, I actually agree. That is great name. But
Yeah.
I do also love them calling back to Mateo's love of superheroes with that.
Yeah.
because-
Yeah. At least
Right.
we have that.
Also, it's Chris Hemsworth. I would agree with that on anything he does.
I agree.
Yeah. So basically they help them get back online and it worked. And you just see this truck or whatever, like the Thor truck pull up, and I'm just like, yep, ads.
I'm
The
not even mad about it. I just find it really funny.
I thought it was hilarious. I'm just like, well, ad. Literally an ad. Like
It's
that was
literally
so
an ad.
random. It was so funny and random, and also like it was just like because they could have totally went something so generic,
Mm-hmm.
and but the fact that they literally did that cracked me up.
Like, go off, I guess.
Yeah, literally. And then the phones start ringing again, and they mostly start getting bogus calls, and I'm just like, I hate people because literally it's like,
And of
my
course,
window's
it's
just
Texas.
shattered. Why is this happening? Blah 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 blah. And I'm like, literally, get off the line.
And also, it's Texas, so of course they have to answer a call about whether or not to shoot somebody. So
I thought that was funny, but honestly, in today's age, that literally doesn't surprise me anywhere.
Right.
Like I
no.
feel like that's so like such a common thing wherever you are. There's always that one person, and then they get a call from like the university, and they're told that like a meteor hit one of the buildings, well, several of the buildings, and it's on fire. And Wyatt like hears a siren in the background, so he's like, "Can you hold your phone up so I can hear the siren?" And she does, and she's like, "Oh, what does it mean?" And Wyatt explains how it's nuclear. So that's
Which it kind of sounds like a very generic siren, I'll be very
Mhm.
honest with you, but I assume that, like, in the context, he had enough
Right.
information for
because
that.
all the siren or all the alarms that we heard in this episode, I'm like, oh, that just sounds like the tornado alarm thing.
Yeah, but I
That's
assume
like
with
literally
the
what it
fact
reminded
that,
me.
like, she said she was at the university, that probably helped.
Yeah,
I don't know. I was just like, that is an extremely generic alarm, but okay. It sounded like the
sure-
tsunami warning in 911.
I'm sure
That's what
like
it made
for
me think
them,
of.
I'm sure for like them, they have like distinct alarms for whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
But like to us, it just like sounds like, oh, it's this, and it's just like, okay. But yeah, that was yeah. But basically the 126 get this call to like the university. And then they like leave this guy at the station.
I
Which
was like,
is
they're
so
doing what?
funny. Which I understand because it was just like totally not like it wasn't like an emergency.
Yeah,
And so
He
he's
wasn't
like,
gonna die from it. It
yeah.
probably hurt a lot, and I kind of feel bad for the guy, but like,
I did. I feel bad. It was like wrong place, wrong time, dude. But he's asking them like, "Don't you need to take me to the hospital?" And TK and answer like, "Well, your injuries aren't life-threatening, and the hospital won't take you anyways." And then like, yeah, Jax offers to help and stuff like, and it's just like TK and Nancy be like, "Wait, who's this?" And Paul's like, "Oh, this is Jax, our newest volunteer. Started about 2 minutes before the meteor hit."
It's like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, that's
So
wow.
they're like, remove glass from this man's skin, irrigate it, and then move on to the plot. And you're just like, this poor Jax. Because, like, literally just getting thrown into this, I'm just like,
To be fair, they did run into the station,
yeah,
but I don't think they were
did.
quite bargaining for this.
Right. But then Jax is like, well, I'm used to pulling it out of my own skin. So
And
Yeah.
the
Our
way
little
this guy's eyes
Daredevil.
widened.
yeah.
Like, wait a second, who's about to take care of me?
Right.
Yeah.
I also just love that we did not see Jax at all again after this scene.
I know. See,
Like,
I like
never utilized again in the entire
Actually,
episode.
he was
Right?
in the end.
I would thought so
were?
because I saw behind the scenes
He
from
there
the actor
in,
Miles
in a
I saw it behind
fire department.
I
unit.
saw
in a
it
fire
behind
department thing. See, I
I
need
saw some behind the scenes too, but I didn't see any of them in the ending.
it. Yeah, I think it was in the ending because I was
sitting
like,
at the
oh,
table
yeah.
with another like recruit, maybe panning across. I think
See, I saw that story coming.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Okay,
like
I'll rewatch the ending at some point. But I was just like, I did like they just didn't show up again, and I was like, okay, well, I guess that's the end of that storyline.
yeah, no, they were definitely in the end. I just like I was like, oh, I didn't notice it, but like, yeah. And then TK and Nancy get into the ambulance, and like TK's like, oh, is it weird we just left the patient with a complete stranger?
Oh,
And
yeah.
Nancy's like, not weirder than a flaming space rock falling from the sky. And like so TK starts to drive like pedal to the freaking metal, and then before Nancy yells, she's like, watch out, and TK almost hits Tommy. Oh my god, like, yes, they weren't expecting her, but it's just like, damn. And
It
it's
probably
like,
wouldn't have hurt all that much because they weren't going all that fast yet, but that still would have sucked.
it
right.
literally seemed like they were, though. It was just like the way like he had to slam. I'm just like, damn. But
Yeah.
like, and TK's just like, Cap, and Tommy like it's like, oh, is there room for one more? And Nancy's like, always. So they have like one final essentially call together, which I was just like, I love how we did this. And yeah, then we get into like essentially like the big scene because so much happening. So basically there's like they then get a bunch of calls about this nuclear reactor and just like that kind of stuff. So it's like on fire and there's like everyone's calling about it, and then the 126 gets there and Owen's like, well, we have to put out these spot fires like outside first, and Owen's like asking dispatch like how bad it is. And Wyatt says, oh, it's pretty bad. According to the reactor's interface, the pressure in the cooling tank is too high. So the core is heating up fast, and Owen asks how much time they have, and Wyatt says at this rate they're looking at a total meltdown of in less than 10 minutes. So that's not good. And Owen says there's gotta be like a shut off valve, and Wyatt says how there's a scram button, and Owen's like, I know what that is. Like I know about it. Like where is it? And Wyatt says the best get is somewhere near the control room. But they are still trying to get a hold of somebody who can tell them for sure. And then Owen says, well, let's start with who was in charge. And so Wyatt's like, oh, it's a Dr. Keith Commerce. But he has been unaccounted for. And so they're like for him, but of course us as the audience know they're like, well, he is not going to respond right now.
Mhm.
And stuff. So Owen says, how okay, I guess we'll have to go in looking for the shut off, or this place is gonna be gone.
Right.
And so Owen asks like Nancy if her team can come in, and she's like, yeah, but I'm not captain today. And Owen sees Tommy, and he's just like, oh, good to see you. And Tommy is like, oh, just for today anyway, and says like they'll meet him inside. And so I love Judd seeing the spot fires and being like, oh golly. And then TK is like asking Tommy, like, are you okay? And she's like, yeah, I'm fine. And TK's like, I don't know, because are you sure you don't look too good? It's like, yep, yep. And he's like, oh, she's fine, just leave it alone. And then the guy that went out after Dr. Commerce is like gone. Basically, he had like a shrapnel wound. And then they check on the doctor, and Mateo like says how he's got a pulse, but like it's like not good. And Mateo's asking like, "Oh, can you hear me?" And then he sees his ID badge, and he's like, "Oh, it's Dr. Commerce." So he yells about it. And then TK tells like TK's like, "Oh, saying how like they need to get him talking, but his pulse is steady." They're trying, but he's like mumbling. He's not making any sense. And Owen's like, "What's wrong with him?" And Tommy says how his pupil's blown, and he must have hit his head when he fell. Like, no shit, there's blood over the floor, you know? And then Owen asks like what they can do, and Tiki's like, "Nothing. We don't have an OR, like we can't do anything." And Tommy's like, "Oh, does anybody on your team have a drill?" And Nancy's just
I will
like,
say that I skipped through this next part. I didn't want to see that.
Yeah, me too.
I'm just saying right now, I skipped
see,
through it.
I don't know. I did when I was rewatching it. Obviously, I didn't have a choice the first time, but like I always watch everything through once. It's just like my thing. But anyways, they like so like I love like Nancy just being like, we can't do that. Like that's illegal. And I'm just like, it's illegal as if you didn't do something illegal before.
Right.
Hmm.
I do recall a moment, but we listen and we don't judge. But I slightly am judging. If but it's like if they don't drain this bleed, it's going to be a death sentence for like everybody. It's gonna kill like a bunch of people. Like, and so like she does it, and then like they're able to find out where the scram button is, and then Tommy's wheezing, and Judd's like, "Oh, are you okay?" And Tommy's like, "No, you have to go because like they have to go get this button. They only have like 3 minutes to find out where the heck it is." And like there's this fire, and it's like near a gas line, so they have to shut that off. And then they go in, and I love Chud saying, "Oh, like that sounds angry. Like, oh, we better hurry." And then they go in, and this tank ruptured and caused this explosion. And I'm just like, oh, as if anything couldn't get worse. And Wyatt is asking the 126, "Do you copy?" And you just see like a helmet on the ground. It's like, "Oh, 126, are you there?" And Carlos sees like the screen. It's like meltdown imminent. And Wyatt is like asking, "Does anybody copy me?" And I'm just like racing the pilot.
I was like, that was
Mm.
totally,
Yeah, there
A
were pilot vibes
callback.
there.
Like so many callbacks. And then we just hear like the automated response saying like core temperature too high, meltdown imminent, over and over. And it's like shut down reactors immediately. And then Wyatt is like, "Oh, like he asking like if
Like, well,
anybody
we're trying
copied."
it.
Yeah, but yeah, you just hear this over and over. And then finally you hear Owens say like a couple of minutes later being like 126 sound off, and everyone's like saying how they're there. They're all hit, and I'm just like, yep, sounds about right.
Yeah, they're all in bad shape.
Yeah, like everyone is. And then Owen tells them not to panic, to remember their training, and says how they're gonna compress each other's wounds and stuff. Like and like everyone, like there nobody is bleeding out today. Um
yeah.
And Judd is asking Owen, like, "What about you?" And Owen says how somebody has to turn this off. And so Owen wonders for the button. And Wyatt is still like engine 126, do you copy it? Owen says how he is on the way to the button, and then Wyatt is like, "Oh, thank God." And we thought you guys might be hurt. And Owen says, "They are. Send help." And Wyatt's like, "Copy." I thought that was kind of like, it's like, "Oh, I thought you were
Eh,
hurt." We are.
We are, but we don't have time to worry about that right now. Just send help.
Yeah.
Yeah, literally. And then so they're in this building, like whole bleeding, laying together. Marjan's like saying how cold she is, and Paul's like, "Yeah, me too." And then Owen collapses, heading to like the room where the button is. And then he sees like, I think it was the girl from earlier, and then he's
Yeah, the
like,
student that Dr. Connors had
"Yeah,
been talking to before.
I thought so." And then like
Yeah.
so he's like asking where the east wall is and she points to it and then Owen is like struggling to get over to the button and then like
Mhm.
all the others are huddled together and Mateo makes a comment of how he he doesn't know how much longer he can go and Judd's like, hey, don't
Because
y'all
he's
do
got a neck
that.
wound.
Yeah, he does. And like don't do that. Come on, and says like 126 dig deep. Don't do it for the people that you love. And I don't mean outside this room. I'm talking about the people you love right here in this room, right here now. Okay. I love each and every one of y'all. Like, you're my own brothers and sisters. I love you more than I love my own brothers. Like, now, hang on. Come on. I love that part.
Like Judd was like
That was
totally captain right there.
he
Oh,
was pulling
yeah.
through for people. He was Owen was off saving, which needed to be done, but since Judd couldn't do it with him, he was there keeping the team together, and I loved that.
Not to
I
mention,
loved
he's like
that
the
dynamic.
dad of the crew.
He
Right?
is the dad of the crew.
Because,
Owen's
like,
the fun uncle. Judd is the dad.
Yeah.
yeah, that's actually very
I
accurate.
think that's I think that's a good description.
That's a very good description because Owen sometimes gets in trouble. Like he's supposed to be the boss, but sometimes he does some things that are just
Sometimes gets in
like
trouble. Yeah.
yeah.
Sometimes he's a little bit stupid as a treat. And
Yeah,
so
sometimes things happen. I get it. And then Mateo being like, I love y'all, and then Paul being like, I love you too, brother, and Marjan being like 126 forever, and Paul saying the same thing, and then Mateo being like 126 for 10 more seconds, and Judd being like, Mateo, shut up. And I'm just like, that is so Mateo though. I totally get it too.
yeah.
It was funny. And then Owen
Just
gets
like
to the
Mateo, shut
button.
your trap.
Literally, shut up, dude. But it's like Owen gets to the button, and then there's like a countdown from like 10. And I love seeing Carlos be like, "Come on, Owen!" Like from the call center. And Owen does get to the button, like literally right in time, and just collapses. And I don't know.
Mhm.
Oh my God, so many things. And then they're all wondering like what's going on. And Mateo's like, wait, what happened? And Judd being like, that son of a bitch did it. And I'm all laughing. And Judd just yelling, that son of a bitch did it, boy. And I'm just like, that was...
That's pretty much an accurate description for everything Owen does. That son of a bitch did it.
Yeah, especially Judd's mouth. I'm just like, I love this man. So
Mhm.
then from the call center, you see like fission reactor terminated. And Wyatt is like, he hit the scram button, and just everyone there cheering. I love that. And then Wyatt then
Mhm.
radio saying, all units, reactor has been terminated. It is now safe to enter. There are at least 5 first responders, code 3 critical. And then the medics like arriving to take care of all of them. And then Mateo just keeps saying like, help Cap, like he's in the control room. And then so one of the medics does go in there. And I was just like, when he goes in there and then Owen's like on his stomach and then he rolls him over, I'm just like, oh no, because all we see is like the silent like scene and he's taking a pulse and then he takes his finger off and he's just staring at him with that like very
Yeah.
grim, sad look. And I'm like, wait, what?
Right?
Did they really just kill Owen? Because I was like, that
Yeah.
was that was literally my thought when I was watching this scene. I was just like, wait. And then I got like a little sad because I was just like, wait, did we really just do this for like all of this?
Mhm.
And this is what happened? Like,
Right.
I think that was everyone's thought process at that moment.
Yeah, no, it was very much an experience.
Yeah.
I'm saving
It
most of
really
my
was.
thoughts to talk about this later, but like, yeah, it was such a whirlwind.
It really was. Then 5 months later, Carlos is on the couch, turning off an alarm, and then he's going back to sleep. And Tiki walks in the room, being like, baby, and Carlos is like, no. And TK says how it's time to get up, and Carlos is like, 5 more minutes. And TK being like, we did 5 more minutes already. We're
5
on the
Five
5th
times.
time. And Carlos is like, TK, I was on a stakeout until 3:30. So just, and I'm just like, oh, we love this. And TK's like, okay, well, I guess we're gonna have to force my hand. And then TK's like, okay, come on, get him. And I'm just like, we see little Jonah run in and lay on Carlos and like standing on it, or not standing, but like on his back, being like, wake up, wake up. And then Carlos literally like rolling over enough where he
Yeah.
can pick up Jonah. And he's like, oh, you brought out the big guns, huh? With
I
Siege,
love it.
so freaking cute. And then
And Jonah's in a little like fire truck shirt.
yes. And then
So cute.
TK's like, oh yeah, and Carlos is like to Jonah, like, come here, and it was so sweet. And then TK says how like we weren't messing around, and Carlos is like, it was so sweet. And then like the whole like their TK was saying how they wanted to get breakfast or have breakfast with Carlos before like he had to go on shift, and um they made chocolate chip pancakes. Well, TK did while Jonah just ate the chips, that I thought was adorable. And
Right.
then Jonah asked like if he
I'm
can
like,
have
me too,
more
kiddo.
chips. Oh, it sounded
I
so
also
good.
just ate the chocolate. Now I just want chocolate chips.
Right.
Oh, I want the whole thing. But
When
Jonah,
I was growing up, I would just reach into like the thing of chocolate chips and just take out.
I still do that now. I'm not gonna lie. Like if there's chocolate chips in
Too.
my pantry, I'm definitely snacking.
If
But
there
yeah,
were chocolate chips in my near vicinity, they're not staying there for long.
oh yeah, it's so bad. But Jonah like asks, "Oh, can I have more?" Like asking to have more, and TK looks at Carlos, and it's kind of like that parental look, and it's like, yeah. And so TK's like, okay, okay, one more handful, and don't spill them. Jonah's like, I will, Papa Bro. And TK says, okay, go get him. Like, I'll be right there. And then he's like, go, go, go. And Jonah runs off, which is super cute. And Carlos kind of looks at TK, gives him that look, and is like, Papa Bro. And TK is like, yeah, we're still searching. And Carlos kind of laughs about it. It's like, oh, TK is like, yeah, we're still searching for a better moniker. And Carlos is like, yeah, keep searching. I thought that was funny. And then we see Jonah eating the chocolate chips, or getting the chocolate chips, and Carlos is like asking TK like what they're up to today, and TK's like, oh, first we're going to the zoo, then we're meeting up with the porcupine zookeeper, then we're gonna have a play date with Denny, and then there's Gymboree, and that's all happening before lunch. As we see Jonah spilling these chips, and Carlos is like, yeah, I'm exhausted from hearing all that.
Right.
And TK
I'm like,
is like,
Carlos, you're exhausted anyway.
Yeah.
literally, it's a hard job. And TK is like, but that's the life I signed up for. And Carlos is like, oh, you still have no regrets? And TK's like, yeah, I have no regrets. And then TK like starts to get up and is just like, I'll be right back. And Carlos grabs his hand when he starts to walk away and is like, you only talked about before lunch. What about at what's happening after lunch? And asks like how he feels about what's happening after. And TK's like, oh, the firehouse thing. And Carlos is like, yeah. And TK's like, it's fine. It is, and tells Carlos that he doesn't have to come with him for that. And Carlos is like, oh no, like, I'm coming. Like, Campbell's gonna cover for him, as he should. And Carlos says how he can't imagine how hard it is for him going back to the firehouse. And Tiki's like, why? Because the last time I was there, I quit my job and became a stay-at-home dad. And Carlos is like, because you've never been there without your dad. And I'm just like thinking all the dark thoughts at this moment,
Right.
because I'm just like,
Mm.
damn, that's really depressing. And Tiki's like,
Yeah.
yeah. And Tiki thanks Carlos for taking time. And Carlos is like, oh, always. And then Jonah is like, Papa Bro, I spilled chips. And Tiki laughs. And Jonah Like
It's like you watch him in the background purposefully spilling the chips on the
I know,
ground. Like he just
there's-
is dropping them out of his hand.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I know.
that
Well,
is
he's
every 3
taking
to 4
the
year
whole
old
damn
ever.
bowl, and I'm just
Yeah.
like,
Can
yeah,
I eat them?
child. Can I? Yeah, yeah. And TK's like, yes, but let me check them first. So TK runs over there, and he's like, hold on. TK tells Carlos that duty calls, and he's like, I love you, and he kisses him, and then TK runs over there, and Carlos is like, yeah, you might still want to work on that name though. And Carlos lays down, like, just like, I need to nap some more. And then TK picks up Jonas, like, I kind of like Papa Bro. Do you like Papa Bro? I like Papa Bro. And I'm just like, Carlos's reaction to that is just like, yeah, that's a no for me.
It's okay. Jonah will grow out of it in like 2 years.
I was
He'll
just about
find
to
out
say,
other name.
I was just about to say it's cute right now, but yeah, he will
It's
grow
cute
out
right
of
now.
that. He's not gonna call you that forever. And if he does when he's older, it's gonna be like as a joke. It's gonna be
Yeah.
like remember when I used to call you this when I first like moved in here? Like
Well,
it's
I'm
gonna
just
be
like, speculatively speaking, what is he calling Carlos? Because I don't think we heard that.
No.
I
I'm
don't know.
like,
I would assume
I'm
maybe
like, what
at
are we?
this rate, he's calling him like something similar to just Carlos's actual name. I don't know if
Hmm.
because you know how some kids are like some kids can't like say like certain names. Like a family
Yeah.
friend,
Mhm.
when I would babysit when she would come over to my house and we'd watch her, she was maybe like this age. She could not pronounce my name. So she would call me Daddy. And I was confusing at first because I thought she was calling me daddy. And so I was so confused. I'm
Oh,
like,
yep.
I'm not your daddy. And then I realized later he was trying to say Katie, but she would call me Daddy, which is actually kind of cute. So like I don't
Yeah.
know if like he can necessarily say Carlos. I don't know, but I would assume maybe it's that. And maybe it'll be something else. I don't know. Because I'm assuming he might have called Enzo Papa
Yeah.
and stuff.
And obviously, like, they're not going to try and be like shoving Enzo out of the way or trying to make him like forget like
Right.
who is his dad. So it's
Right.
obviously going to be something complimentary.
Yeah, they're not gonna necessarily be like call me dad, but obviously like if it happens, it happens because obviously he's only 3.
Yeah, he's only 3 right now, and it's kind of like whatever the kid is comfortable saying. Like, and as he gets older and he's able to understand more of what is going on and why his dad is not there and things like that, he'll probably start maybe uh, calling Enzo something different or yeah, just whatever he's comfortable with. Yeah, Papa Bro is cute though. I'll have to say that.
I do think it's a little cute. Like
Um,
I understand Carlos's
Mhm.
like kind of sentiment towards it too, because he's just like, what?
right?
But it's cute.
Yeah.
It's cute.
Mhm.
It's like a funny, cute name and stuff. Maybe he calls Carlos Uncle Bro.
Uncle
Could be
Bro.
like brother-in-law, bro. I don't know. It's funny.
Yeah.
I think it's just like Carlos or like
Yeah.
Los or something similar to that.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then this next scene is interesting to say the least. But we get Mateo's hearing, and this is like hard to watch like and stuff, but like they're arguing to deport him and like saying like to his home country of Mexico, and then Mateo gets a chance to speak, and he's like saying how like I've considered the options like reapplying in a few years, hiring an expensive lawyer to fight this, and then marrying my girlfriend who does not believe in marriage, but like we wouldn't do that and stuff, which I'm like glad they weren't like forcing like
Yeah.
them to like get married, because I'm like
Mm.
A, I don't want this, and B, I don't like the idea of it, especially when Nancy's like I don't believe in marriage. So I'm glad they didn't like force that agenda. And then Mateo was saying objection when the prosecutor is just like talking over him, and like Mateo's just like, well, objection for you talking over me. And it's just like, go off. And then Mateo says how, like, they both believe in America and this is his home country. He has been here since he was a baby. Mateo
Yeah.
says how he's always been proud of being an American and he's been hiding his whole life. His DACA status, his dyslexia, and the time he burned down a school and let his cousin take the fall for it. And Nancy coughing and whispering, being like, "You don't have to tell them everything." And I'm like, "This is so Mateo, though."
Right.
Yeah.
You know, like, and I honestly kind of forgot about that until like
I
this.
forgot about it sort of until like
Yeah.
this whole
I
thing. I
was
was like, maybe
like,
don't bring
oh,
that up.
it was in the last season when there was that like Mateo Marvin episode,
Uh-huh.
like
Oh,
where they
I
had that
remember it.
really
Yeah.
weird sequence.
Yeah.
I don't even know what to call it. And it was
The
like
kind of
Mateo
WandaVision
Marvin.
esque
Yes.
sequence. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I loved that. And I
I
did
did.
find that in
Yeah.
storyline interesting.
I thought it was fun.
But
But
like
like
I just was like, maybe don't bring it up at your portion.
literally, like not the time,
Not the
bro.
best time.
And then Mateo's like saying how it's okay and that he's done living in fear, and Mateo says how the prosecution says he has a lack of protecting public safety, but he has spent his whole life protecting it. He almost died protecting it. As a firefighter, he has saved thousands, if not millions, of lives here, including the nuclear fallout. He says how he has earned his seat at the table, and if my captain were here today, he'd say, if that's not enough for you, respectfully, you can kiss my ass. And I'm like, Mateo, very,
Mateo.
very, very, that was very on brand. And I'm just like, you know what? I don't know what's gonna happen, but like that was at least they made that a little more lighthearted.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, you know what?
Well, and
Whatever happens, happens.
right, and you can see in this conversation, and then even in the TK scene, it's about his dad, and so they're stringing you along like Owen isn't there, but
I
they're
know.
making it seem like Owen is gone, like dead.
The way they were
Yeah.
playing us, I'm just like, oh, and
Right?
I'm still not there yet. It took a while. Um, but then we get this call of Tommy's doctor, and her doctor is saying, like, in my entire career, I've never seen a case of pseudo whatever it is.
Yeah.
uh like Tommy's tumor swelling, not because it's growing, but because the therapies are killing them off. And like, so we find out Tommy is officially in remission, her tumor is gone, like, and like the progression of like the tumor that was on her aorta to like now is like, so it's gone, she's in remission. And so I was just like,
Which technically you're not in remission for at least 2 years of getting clear scans, but it's a show.
yeah. It
It's
they
a
were
show.
trying to fast
But
track
yeah, fair enough.
things.
Fair enough.
Well, I think even like she told her she was in remission, but she kind of made it a point that like, you're not really out of the woods yet. Like you're gonna have to get checks like every 2 months, but like you should go celebrate and stuff.
Right.
Like,
And I feel
yeah.
like commonly, at least in my experience, and this is just like from my aunt having had cancer and my uncle also having had cancer and people around me having had cancer before, I feel like the term is like loosely used
Yeah.
as like you're no longer in chemo, the tumors have shrunk or are gone. So I think
Mhm.
it's used like again loosely used as just a casual phrase, even if it's not medically what that necessarily means. Because I know for damn sure no one started waiting for 2 years until after any of them. At least in
Right.
my experience, start saying remission. So yeah,
Right.
that I'm
Yeah.
wondering if maybe that's just where they went with this. Maybe
Yeah.
using
Probably.
terms that people would understand.
Right. And that's what I asked because when my mom was going through the cancer, I asked about like when is she, deemed remission. And like technically, that's the most common phrase you hear when somebody's beat the cancer is you're in remission. So they're like, but technically we don't call it that until medically until like 2 years out. So I can understand why, they were using this. It was just like, yeah, I'm like, okay, but like cool, she's clear. I like love it.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
And then Tommy was like to Charles, well, I guess I won't see you for like, I guess I'll be here like a little longer. And Judd then shows up and is like, oh, like you had your appointment today. Like I knew you had your appointment today, and Judd's like sees that she was crying, so he's like thinking that it's bad. And she's like, no, they're like happy tears, like I'm in remission. And Judd's like, a hell of a way to start your first day back. And Tommy's like, yeah. And so Judd is like saying how he can't believe someone else will be taking over for Owen, much less who. And Tommy says how she can't believe that she is still here, but he is not. And I'm just like, the wording they're using, like, oh my God. Like, just the way they are completely, like, tricking us. And I'm just like, totally trying to get us to buy everything they're telling us. And I'm just like, oh, it's a roller coaster. But then we go to the 126 and we have Chief Bowman there, who is like, obviously, like, we're seeing who's captain, which honestly, like, yes, it was there the whole time, but like, I have so many thoughts and feelings because I'm just like, so he's saying like all good things must come to an end. It's a bitter truth. Few know better than the people in this room. But I've learned another truth in life. Sometimes something good must end so that something great can begin. And I believe that's about to happen in here as I swear in your new captain. And so then we see Judd being sworn in, and I'm like, well, this is totally full circle. And I'm like, thank you. Oh, I love this. I love this so much. I'm so happy we got this. And I love how we see, obviously, Wyatt and Charlie are both up there, and Charlie like pins his badge on him.
When I saw Charlie, I just squealed. Like,
yeah,
that was that was like one of the happier points in like this episode for me, when I was like, it's Charlie, because like we'd only really seen her in a call for quite a few episodes now. So
yeah, it was like because we saw her in a FaceTime call last episode when they were like calling their family. And then before that, we hadn't seen her since I believe the beginning of the season and stuff. So
yeah, aside from that video call last episode.
yeah. Yeah. So then we see and I loved actually Judd being like to Charlie, like, we did it, kiddo. That was so cute. And then we see TK and Judd, and TK has like Jonah in his arms, and TK says how it's a big chair man, very well deserved. And Judd like doesn't know about that, but what he does know that he does have big shoes to fill, and TK tells him, you will. And then Jonah says how he's hungry, so then TK goes off. That was so cute.
Yeah.
And then Judd's like talking to like everyone's kind of in the room, and Judd is like talking, like asking Mateo how the hearing went and stuff. And basically, or well, actually, before that, Mateo is like they're talking about being captain. I believe it was also Tommy, and then Mateo walks in, being like, well, see how soon it goes to your head." And I'm just like, and then Judd asks, "Oh, well, how did the hearing go?" And Nancy's like, "Oh, well, he did tell the judge in open court to kiss his ass." And Judd's face, and then Paul being like, "You did not." And
Paul
Mateo's
just appears
like,
in frame
"He
going, "You
did."
did not."
Paul is always there for moments like that, and I absolutely love it.
He's here for the drama, and I adore him for it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we need somebody sensible to be like, "You did not just do that." And then Marjan's sitting back, and she's like, "Who are you, Captain Strand?" And she's pregnant.
I know, right?
She sits back, and honestly, it took
I
backtracked
to be like, I'm sorry, what?
the first watch through, to be honest, I didn't notice it because so much was freaking happening in these last like 10-15 minutes that I didn't notice it until Tommy put her hand on her stomach and was feeling like the baby kicking.
Right.
And so like that's when I noticed it first watch through, but obviously I caught on like the second time way faster. But I was just like, so like she sits back and in the when I was watching it again, and I was like, oh my God. And then Mateo's just saying how he learned from the best, and Paul asks what the judge said, and Nancy says how his citizenship was fast tracked, by the judge because of his courageous work as a firefighter. Okay, I saw that coming. I was like, they're definitely gonna do that, and I'm honestly not mad about it. Them joking about Marjan's baby being a busy bee because like Tommy's like, because she's like, oh, the baby's like wants to say hi, and then like Tommy's feeling and she's kicking, or we don't know if it's a boy or girl, but I just went there. But the
Yeah.
baby's kicking a lot,
Yeah.
and
Be a soccer
Paul's
player.
yeah, Paul's saying, "Oh, someone got it from their mama," and Marjan's like, "Yeah, Joe and I are screwed." That's gonna be me if I ever have a
Yeah.
child.
Yeah.
I already know it. And then Wyatt yells to Judd saying like, "Dad, Charlie wants to know who the guys in the photos are." So Judd brings
Oh yeah.
Charlie over
Children do
there.
have a way of doing that.
Yep, they always do. So Judd brings her over to like the wall where the 126, like the original 126 pictures are. Which is a very full circle moment because we're seeing this in the finale. So like Judd's being like, oh, like who they all were, and like being like, oh, this guy was a captain, and then Charlie's like, and now you're a captain. Judd's like, yep. I'm the captain. And then TK is on the phone. And right away I was like, you're kidding. And then it's like Owen and TK's like, do you want to say hi to the new captain? So they tricked us about Owen being freaking
Yep.
dead and Owen's actually alive. And I was honestly very shocked at this moment because I was just like, wait a minute. Because I was just like, oh,
Yep.
it was going dark for me. Like it was,
Right.
and Owen's just like, oh, another time. But then TK puts the phone right in front of Carlos and Jonah,
I love
and
that.
TK is just like, well, you want to say bye to these two? And then Owen being like, Carlos is like, oh, later, Owen, and Owen's like, bye, Carlos. So that was just like, oh, and then they're like, TK's like, oh, love you, and Owen's like, love you too, son. And I'm just like, oh, and then the 126 helmet hanging in like his office in New York. And then Owen basically having to go out to another world of crazy, out of this world calls.
And it was a really cool scene for me as he's walking out because I don't know if you caught it. So he's got the fire helmet from the 252 and he's
Yeah.
got the 126. And then as he's walking out, the trucks that he's walking out past are the 252 trucks. So it's like he chose to
You
have
didn't
his
catch that.
station be at the 252.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was like,
Yeah.
oh my god, that's so cool.
Yeah, I know. It was very full circle. And it was funny. Like a lot of people, well, I know like people were talking to me about this, about like they're like, oh, like would Owen ever come back? And somebody even brought this up before I even said it, but somebody's like, I guarantee Owen will retire in Texas, but like he'll be in New York for now. And I'm like, I totally could see that happening. Owen keeps his house there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then like he just retires there because I definitely could see him retiring there. I'm just like, he's got a horse in New York, Buttercup's in New York.
Right.
I'm just like, I could. Now Buttercup's like, oh, I guess I'm a city dog.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know I saw somebody make a comment like, man, I wish Owen would have left Buttercup with TK because then like Jonah would have grown up with Buttercup and
They would need a house in that case.
yeah, they couldn't do a
Right.
dog and a kid and the two of them in that loft.
Like, luckily Buttercup's like an older dog, so like he is probably like a lot less maintenance rather than having a puppy with a kid. But like they need a house if they're gonna have a dog that big. I think people underestimate how big Bernese Mountain Dogs are because they are like they could be up to like 100 pounds. Like that's
Yeah.
a big dog, and that's coming from somebody. Well, now I have small dogs, but I had dogs that were like 50, 60 pounds. So that's even bigger than dogs I grew up with.
Yeah. They're pretty big, and they need somewhere to be active too.
Yeah. You need to be able to go out and run a little bit, have a yard.
Some sort of yard, yeah, or even just a bunch of stairs they can go up and down.
Right.
Or you just have to commit to like, walking them like a lot. Oh, and that was like literally how we ended. It was cool seeing like Owen like walk out into the street and then he's going to like this other like really out of this world kind of call, and then like obviously Judd's the captain, and just seeing like where everyone was at. Like I had my own like where I wanted everyone to be, and it wasn't too far off.
Yeah, me too.
It's definitely interesting, but I don't know. I mean I
Yeah.
liked it a lot. Like I'm glad they didn't go for something like super drastic. Like I know I was reading several articles and I know like the current showrunner said how, which he's worked on Lone Star like the whole time and stuff, but he had said that he basically kept things open because he didn't want to kill anybody because he wanted the chance that they could crossover characters into like 911 or that new spinoff that they're doing for like a 911 centric, or I don't even think they know like exactly what they want to do or
They do not.
whatever. Like
I'm pretty sure they don't.
no. Like they bounced ideas around, but like a couple of them they're like, "Well, we're not doing this."
Yeah.
I honestly think it was also from like people saying like, "Oh, you should not do that." And I know they like I read that they were kind of setting up the Ranger things to possibly do like a Tarlos spinoff, but focusing on like Carlos being a Ranger, but then having them, which that would be a cross, or that would be like a spin out since we already knows those characters and stuff. But I think that's interesting. But I like the idea that it's open enough where the characters can go to like 911 for like an episode or like the whatever the other show is whenever they figure that out. And I know I did also read that basically one of the reasons why Lone Star ended was just because of them being on different networks. And like basically they're a child divorce since they have like different, I forget how they worded it. It was like they have different, I'll pull up what it said because it was actually kind of interesting. So basically the same issues that plagued Lone Star, meaning that happened because we had a different network partner and a studio partner. And basically it was revealed that like the why the spinoffs never happened on Fox. And even though they'd all started under the same roof by the end of the series, we were basically a child divorce, and that was just a reoccurrent obstacle if Fox decides to go for a production from another studio. The Tarlos spinoff might happen. Basically they're like still pushing for it. Like he's not gonna stop pushing for it. And basically like because Roden and Rafa both said that they're like not done telling stories for these characters, so they're definitely still interested if they like if it were to actually like happen.
Which is
And
good to hear.
which honestly
For sure.
everyone on the cast has said that. Like I know Brian has said that, Natasha has said that, like almost everyone has said that, and also I heard that even a New York spinoff with Owen was even mentioned. But honestly, I don't know if that would have like the audience behind it, because there's a lot of people that wouldn't want like an Owen show. I think people would more like,
We already got an Owen show.
that's what I mean.
That's what Lone
Even
Star is.
even
Yeah.
I wouldn't like if they had made an episode about it to be like, oh, this is what's happening, like that would be fine. But like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of
Yeah.
people wouldn't. I don't, because it would just be like another show just continuing Owen's shenanigans.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people would not love that. I
Yeah.
can guarantee it. Um,
People shit
and
on the show enough. They would just take it all over
they
to
they would
Owen.
rip that
Even though
apart.
absolutely no one forces them to watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
I
that,
understand it to a level.
yeah.
I definitely understand, and that the reason I understand it is because, as I said, we've already gotten the Owen show. That's
Yeah.
Lone Star. So I don't know. Like I wouldn't mind ever seeing him again. Like I
Yeah.
would be okay with seeing him in different episodes and different shows and stuff like that. Like if for
Right.
some reason 9-1 took a day trip to New York or something like that. But or the whatever new show. But definitely I'm kind of I think right now where I'm at is I kind of want the new show to kind of do a mostly clean break, even if it does occasionally bring over even if it brings over one character or maybe 2 in the case of like Carlos, or has visitations. I think I'm just kind of interested in them kind of doing a clean break.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think, I don't know. I think the ratings were like I think the network just didn't want to pick up like a Ranger show because it would still be, they were just gonna base it in a new city. Because they're like, oh, if Carlos had to like transfer to somewhere else in Texas and say they were in El Paso, which I think even if they did another city, that'd be kind of funny because then they could like literally bring Eddie in and just some random episode.
Right.
I know there's like so many things. I think like because they're trying to keep it to probably trying to keep it to the first responder thing. So I don't know. Spinoffs can take a long time to come into effect. So who honestly knows when it'll happen
Yeah.
or what they end up doing. But
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
So many thoughts on that.
There's so many thoughts.
I think like the show itself, I think did well. Grace and I had briefly chatted before I think you got on, Katie, that her and I kind of didn't even feel like it was an end, like a series finale, just because of some of the, I don't know, it kind of felt like 418 a little bit. Just
See, I kind of disagree.
Resolved, but
yeah, I don't feel that way because if it was a season finale, the asteroid thing would have been the end of the episode. It would have been a cliffhanger, and then the season 6, if that we would have got, would have picked that up. And I know they even mentioned that they would have done different storylines if they had gotten a season 6. They would have had the asteroid be the end of the episode. They wouldn't have like resolved it and stuff. That's why it. I don't know. It's
well, in
it was
that
kind
case,
of,
I mean, yeah, I
yeah.
can understand that. I don't know. I think maybe there's part of me that just doesn't want to believe that it's over. So then I'm just like, no.
Yeah, there's that
finale.
delusion. I was literally, and I was just like, I can't believe that we just watched the last episode, and I was totally into Lulu. But then also, like, I don't know, they left it, and I understand why they kept left it open, like, because of the crossover aspects. But also, I'm like, I'm glad they kept it that open because there were shows where they knew their ending, so they
yeah.
not closed too much. They kept it somewhat open, but then they were like, "Oh, this is where this character is in 10 years." And I'm like, "Well, now there's no chance to get like a spin-off or a continuation or somebody to pick it up because nobody's going to pick it up if you left. They left things like closed enough but open enough."
Yeah. Well, and and I think we've talked a lot too, even about like the full circle moments of like since the beginning. I think everybody at some point felt like Judd should have been captain of the 126. So for them to finally become captain of the 126, a huge like big milestone. I wish they would have been able to bring Grace back.
Yeah,
when they negotiated the contracts, had they known that at that moment, because at the time they negotiated the contract with her, they didn't know that it was the end, which is why I think some people had wanted her to come back, but then had they known that, they would have tried to get her to come back for that last episode or even that last scene.
Yeah.
And then, Owen starting in, New York and coming down to Texas, and now he's going back to New York because kind of his time is done. I mean, he did what they asked him to do when he first was hired to come down to Texas.
Right.
And with TK, like he's leaving TK in a spot where like TK was on the verge of death when they went down there, and now he's totally a 180 in a good spot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like I really liked the episode. I did feel like there was a lot, but I'm glad that you're right that they didn't do like a 10 years later type of storyline, because then it's like then you're kind of like no point for a spinoff. So with 5 months is okay. Like you can just, if that's like just like 6 months from now, whatever.
Right. And I know some people were like, how is Judd captain, but then Paul's the lieutenant? And I'm like, guys, you're forgetting that Judd had years and years of experience as lieutenant. And the only reason why he's not is because the fact that he quit for like, he was gone for like over a year and then he came back. So like, yes, he was gone and then he had to go to Proby, but that was only really just based on like formalities. And he has years of experience as a lieutenant. So like, and It was the writing was there because Owen had mentioned a couple episodes ago, like they were talking and Judd was like, "Oh, well, nobody goes from probie to lieutenant." And it's like that was like when they said that, I was like, "Oh, I already know what's gonna happen."
I don't know. I see why people are saying that because it is still logically the option would next be Paul because he is standing lieutenant at that time.
Yeah.
Um, so I understand both sides of the coin.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I necessarily have an opinion on it because they were never going to give us the option where Paul became captain.
Right.
I don't
Even
think he's
even if I
been
did think
lieutenant long enough for it to be an
even if I did
option.
e- even if I did think that he deserved it, or which he definitely deserves it, but even if I did think that he was the best option of the two of them, and they
Mhm.
both have their flaws and attributes for it, like they were never going to do that. Um, so I don't know. I'm kind of very neutral on it. It was just kind of always how it was going to be. I know I have some complicated thoughts on this episode, but I don't know that if we fully gone into final thoughts yet more than just speculation about where
Oh,
this is
I think
going.
we kind of
So
have because I have a ton of thoughts and they're just coming out randomly. So
Yeah, I feel like we're
fair.
there. But yeah, I liked that was the ending because
oh yeah, no,
it
I think it
was
was a great
always
ending.
where it was always where it was gonna go, and he has all this experience, and like just because I know people are like, just because you're like they kind of made that point of like just because you're here doesn't mean you can't be like the top, because there's definitely people that like go from like being at the bottom to being the top, but like he had all this experience. He's been on the job like a long time, like 20
Mm,
plus years. So he's been there also longer than anybody else. So like it makes sense.
yeah.
I also think
Uh,
it was kind of cool that at one point they got to where Charlie was asking about the guys on the wall, and Jed
mm,
said it was like he thought it was time, and so he picked her up and went over and started talking to her about him. I was like,
that was cute.
yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah, that was probably pretty healing for him as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially to see him go to such a dark place and to come out
Mm.
like on the brighter side was really cool to see.
Okay, Grace, share. I want to hear.
I'm gonna do a two-parter. And the reason I say that is because I understand that for some people like the Indie of Lone Star is really hard, and I don't want to necessarily rain on anyone's thunder because I do have some criticism to share. So my second part is going to be more my criticism, and I'm going to separate it out because I want, like, if someone really does not want to hear criticism on the show, like they want to leave it like, you know, very pure and intact for them, that they can just skip a few minutes. So I'm just going to keep it all in one spot because I don't want to rain on anyone's parade. So I'm going to do my good part first. First of all, I did like the episode. It is, of course, difficult to deal with the fact that this is the end of Lone Star. I definitely have not fully realized that myself, but it was good to see where everyone kind of wound up. Of course, it's always good to see that found family dynamic coming through, to see like them telling each other how much they loved each other, to see them pulling through. Like just looking where we started, where we ended up now, absolutely precious. I really loved those different aspects of that. Of course, I loved the Tarlos content that we got, both the phone call, the scene with Jonah. I love where that ended up. Of course, we were completely right on where that went, and I am very happy about that. And I will say that I did sort of like I don't have any like regret personally that that's where TK went because TK became a firefighter partially because of his dad. Like, and that's not a bad thing necessarily. I think he really did love his job, but I don't think that like he was giving up on his forever dream necessarily. I just kind of feel like he went through one stage of life and then he was ready to transition to another. And I love that like it was handled really well. So, of course I love that. I love to see like Carlos typing as a ranger. Um Marjan pregnant and everything. That was great. It was a surprise, that's for sure. That was not on my bingo card for the show.
Right.
Um but good for her and Joe. And of it is good to see Judd taking his position there. Charlie, of course, it's good to see Paul just in general because I love that man. Brian Michael Smith has been posting so many like end of series contents. They all have, but especially him. He's been reposting so many fan thoughts, and I've loved seeing that. And of course, it's good to see where Owen ended up because I truly do think, he did what he came to Austin to do. And I feel like he was getting bored. He kind of needs a challenge. He needs a project. So he is where, he's where he's gonna be. Where it kind of goes, where I have some gripes, and if you don't want to listen to this, like any listeners right now, skip forward a little bit. First of all, this whole episode should have been 2 or 3 episodes, in my opinion. I don't think this should have been 1. And this is partially because this was a shortened season. This was the final season. They were trying to cram so much into the season, and I had some gripes about that in the last episode. And they are still gripes here. They were just trying to do so much, and they had the asteroid attack, or not attack, but sure, we can say that the asteroids are attacking. Yippee! But they kind of like that stopped. Like they hit the Earth, and then that didn't matter anymore. And then it was the nuclear reactor, and sure, that is a big thing. That is important. But it's kind of like, oh, okay, we just learned about nothing else about the asteroid or what it hit, because we saw them hit multiple other places in town. So I feel like over a couple episodes we could have explored that. There was also like we had the scenes at the university where there were all the scientists down, there were all these students down. You saw some people like desperately wounded. We never tackled any of those people. Like we see them entering the building where Dr. Calmer and the other guy that died were, and we just see bodies outside the door, and they're not even stopping. And I get they can't, but it's still like, okay, it just feels like we're really hurdling through. One of my loves in major disaster episodes is like the focal points where they bring in like different people, and they focus on them getting rescued, and they focus on the people that they stumble across the way and getting rescued. That is a formula we have done in both shows, and that is one of my favorite points. Because it's just, in a disaster, it's kind of easy to lump everyone in together. And right now I'm thinking especially of the major plane crash that happened in DC last week, and the 67 people that died on the plane, not to mention the Black Hawk. And it's like, it's easy to say 67 people died, but then like breaking down that down further is difficult, but it also gives memory and pays respect and tribute. So that's kind of what I feel like the show does. And I just felt like I was really missing that from this episode. And I will say I did have to pause in the middle of watching this episode and look up if there are actually nuclear reactors on college campuses, which there are. And I did not know that. And I feel like that is deeply flawed logic, because to have nuclear reactors in the middle of student space, but that's a whole other thing. I will say, though, that my biggest gripe with this entire episode is the fake out deaths, both with Tommy and with Owen. I would have had some gripes with just one, but the fact that we had both, I actually hated it. Of course, I'm not saying that I wanted either or both of them to die. Please don't think I'm saying that. It's good to see Tommy go back to the 126, and it's good to see Owen didn't die. But if that's where we were going after all, I did not need that emotional manipulation.
Yeah.
And you don't need to do that sort of.
Tommy's was more fans kind of thought that. I don't necessarily, because I did not see that. I was like.
But they deliberately framed it to be such. They framed it with her diagnosis. They framed it with her call to her kids. They framed it with Charles and showing up, and that whole thing with him still being there after she woke up was certainly a thing, but whatever. But they framed it in so many different ways, and they continued framing it in this episode where she was weak, she was collapsing, which, yes, that is a side effect of the fact she's had chemo for a while, but also, that's still showing that she's not doing well and that she's about to die, which is kind of where they have been leading that train of thought. And all throughout that thing, I'm like, well, is Tommy about to drop dead now, or is she dropping dead later? Like, the whole thing is that it looked like they were just prolonging her death, and then they were like, oh, never mind, you're actually fine. And I don't know that I love that. I did not love that. Of course, I'm glad Tommy lived, but I just I did again. I don't love being emotionally manipulated just because that's the only way you can think of to tell a story. And that's just how I felt like this came across as. And that is kind of the same for Owen, who is someone that I would have definitely been very sad if he died, but I've also kind of gone into the finale thinking it was definitely a possibility that he was going to. And the fact that they did just deliberately drag that out until the very end, I'm like, that was never necessary. Like, you could have absolutely had that heart-stopping moment where everyone thinks he's dead for like a minute or so, but then like in the next scene, you have a mention or you have a slight hospital scene or something like that. I realized like after that we had the 5 month break, but at that point, come on, the script was deliberately written to frame like he was dead, and just for me that did not work. I did not love that. And that just kind of spoiled it. I'll be real. Like, and I'm not saying I hated this episode. I actually liked it, but I didn't love it as much as I wanted to. And that's really difficult to say, especially with this being the series finale. Like, this is what we're leaving Lone Star off on. And I still love the show immensely, but I wish I'd loved the finale as much as I loved the show overall. If I gave it a rating out of 10, I think it'd be like a 6, a 7, definitely not more than that. So I don't know, those are my biggest gripes. I definitely have like small ones here and there, but those are like my biggest ones. Again, just recapping though, it was fine. It was good. I just wish I'd loved it more.
Yeah, that's understandable. I think though, with the time they had to put all this together,
Yeah.
they did a pretty good job.
I agree.
Just because they couldn't draw all these things out that people wanted to be drawn out because they literally did not have the amount of time to do it. They couldn't have cut anything to do that.
I agree, but also like in the end, like I think one of my main thoughts going into this is they did make choices to have storylines in there that they did, like ultimately they never needed to put some of those storylines in there and they still chose to do it. So I think it's just like I'm not sure I agree with the choice to put those storylines in there at all, since we all knew they couldn't be expanded upon, if that makes any sort of sense. Like if we'd had that time, sure, again, like I would have ate this nuclear and or asteroid arc up if it so much if it had been a full 2 episodes or even 3, but we didn't have that sort of time, and I get that.
Yeah, they would have extended to next season anyways. It wouldn't have been 3 in this season anyways.
Yeah. So again, like I think I'm in the minority. I feel like I am definitely in the minority of fans, and that is fine. I am fine with how I feel on it versus other people, but also, you know what? I still like the episode. It's still a farewell to Lone Star.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah, it's gonna be. It's. I already miss it. It's already a bummer knowing that it's not coming back. I think that'll hit me a little bit more in a few months as like we're not getting new messages about like, oh, we're going back into fittings and things like that. Like I think that'll like it'll affect
Yeah, or them like working on different things.
Yeah, or yeah, as we're starting to see pictures of like I know Ronan's doing some stuff now and like his new like his next project and Rafa's next project and stuff. I think that'll start affecting me a little more, like realizing it's not coming back. And you know, in a month or so, like I think today, a month from today, where we're recording this, is when 911 will be back too. So it's not like we're not going to have stuff to talk about. It is
I
kind
know
of
we'd be way
weird.
more sad if we had nothing to talk
Yeah,
about. We would
I
be
think
so
so.
sad. So I guess
Yeah.
that's like at least a plus. And it is like it's so sad because like everyone's posting pictures and be like 126 forever and I'm just like, guys, I hate it here. And I just have
Yeah,
so many
for sure.
feelings and thoughts and it's just like as like yes seeing the finale was a little sad but like it wasn't like I don't know how to explain it. It wasn't like I was so sad when it was over. I was just like, okay, this is it. Like not that like in a bad way. It was just like, oh, I don't know. I guess I'm hopeful that they can do things like with some of the characters, and that maybe something else will come up. I don't know. I have hope that something will happen and we'll see some sort of the 126 in the future.
Yeah, I think we will
Yeah.
somehow. And I'm actually kind of looking forward to their creative ways of doing that. Would I like to see a Tarlos spinoff? Sure. Because I would love to have more Tarlos. Or have a character visit LA. I know that there was a talk, one of the showrunners had said an idea they had was a friendly, like the 126 goes to LA to do, like sends a couple of the firefighters or characters to LA to do like some firefighting competition. And then in the midst of that, some natural disaster happens that they have to jump in and help with. So I thought that was a cool idea. And I'm like, that still could happen. They just does, the show has to just off. So I don't know. I feel like it left it in a very good spot to where we could have something happen later.
Yeah.
And I would love to see TK's like life as a stay-at-home dad. Because that was, not something I think he fully expected to do, and then he did, and
Right, yeah. Like some people were kind of like, oh, if this happens, I'm so mad. And it's like, this is pretty characteristic for TK just because he wasn't going to leave his brother in a boarding school in a foreign country to just fend for himself. Like, he was definitely going to be doing something about it, and him just quitting his job was very, like, characteristic for him. Like it makes sense. Like it wasn't out of left field. Like TK's kind of like he's gonna take care of his family and he's gonna do whatever he can to do it. And Carlos is the same way, but like Carlos is you can kind of see that Carlos would be the one to like be working and TK wouldn't.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it makes the most sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Carlos being TK's husband still is a connection to Jonah, but TK is Jonah's biological brother, like half brother.
Right, yeah, that's
So
another
of the
thing.
two of them, logistically, it would make sense that TK would be the one to do that. And that's not to say in a few years TK couldn't go back to work, but for the time being, while Jonah's not in school, a couple of years of being a stay-at-home dad, that's doable.
Yeah, and like I think that TK's the most like would probably be the most at peace with leaving his job. I don't think Carlos would be so as much.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think he would just struggle a lot more with it. So yeah, I think it turned out just as it needed to.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Jonah is going to be very loved.
It was funny because somebody had said something to me about like Lone Star and that one. They were like, 911 is something about 911 being a family, but Lone Star actually feels like a family. And I was like, when I heard that, I was like, wait, that actually makes like perfect sense.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I can understand that.
Yeah, like I was like, wait, I love that. Like I totally feel that. And I don't know. I feel like we're in such a weird time because I'm just like, what do you do when your comfort show basically ends? Because this is like
we rewatch it. That's what we do.
Yeah, I know, because I know. I'm gonna rewatch it actually I'm gonna start from last season because I would do this thing where I'd share like my 5 favorite scenes from each episode. So I need to get back to that, and I know I stopped that like in the middle of last season, so I'm gonna rewatch those episodes so I can finish that like relatively soon. But I'm definitely gonna be rewatching it a lot because like I haven't really had the chance to, but I'm definitely going to do like a rewatch probably like around the time that it would normally air and stuff. So there, at least there's that. But I'm just like, this is like the one show that was such comfort, especially in the time that it was out. And then like not even because of that, but this is like the only show where I was actually like liked all the characters, especially like as we got on further, because there I had complications with a few people in this show.
Yeah, I think we all
Like
did.
Michelle. It was funny with with that because it was funny when maybe it was trauma, but when I was like, I don't like Michelle, and people are like, girl, we don't like Michelle either. I was like, oh, okay, we're on the same page because it's like it's also kind of hard when you say you don't like a female character, because one time I said I didn't like Taylor Kelly, and then I just realized I was on the wrong side of the internet. But people were like,
I will die on that hill.
oh, we will all die on the hill, and I know a lot of my, and then when I said, so like I had said that I didn't like her, and people basically were like, "You hate women." I'm like, how the hell do I hate women if I am a woman? And it was just like so ridiculous, to the point I had people like almost sending me death threats. And this is why I only go on Twitter to scroll and read articles, because that is the only reason why I still keep that app, because I want to see people posting about like the 911 news, and like different people I follow that are nice people will post about different things, and I want to see that. That is the only reason why I am not in there. I just scroll, occasionally post a link, and that is it. And that's it. But I stay on my own little corner of the internet. The safe corner, because I'm like, I just post my silly little videos and go about my day.
Yeah, I go and I like, like, oh, I like that picture. I like that, yeah. I do not want to get into drama.
I know, because like, and I don't have that, like, I don't have that problem in like my own little corner of the internet. My little community is like, and nobody's mean, nobody's kind. If they were, they'd be gone.
Yeah.
Like, and I love that. And that's what I like about Lone Star too, because like it's built, like I've literally built a little community, like posting Lone Star things, and it's weird to think about, but it's also cool to think about. So I have a lot of things to be grateful for in that sense. Like the cast, like I think we noticed this a lot in the beginning, how like the cast was very interactive
Mm-hmm.
with, like, especially in the first season. I remember like when I first started posting like Lone Star things, it was funny because I would post them like every day, because it was during COVID. So like, what the hell else are you
Right.
gonna do? And I remember Ronan would, like, for a while, like when the show was first starting out and everyone was like little babies, like Ronan would like something like every single day. And I remember I
Yeah.
would have like a little. I'd always send things to like one of my best friends, be like, ooh look." It
Yeah.
was
I
very,
remember the time.
yeah, it's just, it's a lot to look back on. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've come a long way. And and I was just thinking, like, because Lone Star started, this is February now, but it started in January of 2020.
mm-hmm.
And, I'm sure a lot of the reason why they were very interactive was that first, March to June of pandemic, you were like shut down, like you couldn't do anything.
I know. I remember when Ronan did like lives during quarantine.
Yeah.
I remember one of them was literally when I believe my mom picked me up from my school, because I was still in school at the time, and I was watching it like in the car or whatever, like just listening to it after we went shopping. And then like I believe like a week or two later, I had to move my stuff out of where I was living,
Mhm.
and then I had to come home, and then that was like, I remember like the lives in the beginning, and
The
like,
candles,
yes.
lighting the candles.
I
I
remember
watched
Ronan
those
had like a,
pictures.
I think he might still do, like he had like a whole like highlight in his Instagram story, and I remember I was on that highlight.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I did it a couple of times. I think at one point I even had a little Carlos car. I don't even remember what it was. Corvette? What
A Camaro.
Camaro. I knew it was
Yes.
pretty. I somehow I ran across one, so I picked it up and would set it next to the candle that I was like. So I keep running across pictures, but yeah, it's. I figure give me a few months and it'll hit me more. Maybe when 911 comes back and I realize that there's no more Lone Star or something. I don't know.
I know.
I'm
It'll
feeling
definitely
like
happen.
once we have to figure out what we're talking about when no one's not around, it's
I
what
know
it's
it'll be
gonna
like
be.
a
Yeah.
freaking hiatus, which
Mm,
I don't hate, because sometimes I like to like go places in the middle of winter when it's
Mm-hmm.
freaking cold in New York and snowy
mm.
and just not great. So it'll be like nice to go, be able to do things, but it's gonna be like, oh, what are we gonna talk about? And I know we'll probably do
We'll come up with something.
Lone Star episodes, because I know we'll want to do like maybe like a Tarlos ranking, and I know we could do like other things to still keep Lone Star alive and talk about it every once in a while.
Yeah.
Um, so there's that. it's just it's a weird time. I don't even know my feelings on it. Like I'm not sad, but I'm not happy. I don't know. Like I'm not like depressed about it. Like honestly, if this was a couple of years ago, me talking about the cancellation, I'd probably be like, I'm gonna be depressed when this happened. And then it happened, and I was just kind of like, what the hell? But like, then we're here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I'm not like sad, but I think it's because I just have hope about things. And I'm just like, and then already in this episode, I was watching this episode, and after it was over, I was like, but what about this? Okay, that needs to be a fanfic. Okay,
Yeah.
this. Like, that's kind of how my brain is working, and I haven't really had that kind of thought in a while. Yeah, just, I don't know. I'm just grateful that we got 5 seasons.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
Because,
sure. And
and
you know what? We got some pretty good seasons too.
yeah, we did.
I heard the count was 72 episodes.
72 episodes. Yep.
Yeah.
I know,
Good
I
run.
did see in one article they were like basically being like, can't 72 episodes canceled like way too soon. Like we still had 2 more seasons, and I'm like,
Mhm.
but you know, I am grateful for what we got into the cast and just everything.
Yeah, what do we get for fan thoughts? Because I'm sure everybody has something to say.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So, very sad but thankful for the past 5 years with such a wonderful cast. I definitely agreed to that. Pretty good. It was a shock of how it ended. Good. Wish for more. I liked it. Glad it ended happy. Wish for more episodes. Don't we freaking all?
Don't we all?
While I'm happy they got their happy ending, I needed more, and I am not ready to say goodbye. None of us are. We had a whole season of prayer, we're still not ready. There was so much left unsaid. I think that was a good thing. I loved it, nervous the whole time, tears at the end knowing it was the last show, 126 forever. Agreed. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
The last
Yeah.
Lone Star fan thoughts.
Yeah.
126 forever.
126 forever. Yeah, I think 126 forever is a good way to wrap up.
It's
Agreed.
true.
I mean, it's what brought us together.
True, true.
It is. It is what brought us together.
Yeah.
126 forever, guys.
126
Agreed.
forever.
Thank you guys so much for joining us and listening. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. You can also check out our website, 91lsroundup.com. You guys can follow the podcast on our socials on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok. Be sure to join our Discord server. The link is in the description of this podcast and also on our website. You guys can follow me, Katie Effelovitarlos, on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads.
You guys can follow me, Grace, at RunandRathla911 on Instagram and Threads.
You can follow me, EJ, at EJ8302 on Instagram and Threads. Bye.
Bye.